Hi guys, Debbie Dubois here with the iN2ITion channel. Welcome back. It's been a minute since I've done a video. I am here with my friend Marla Kelly, and we've been wanting to do this video for a long time. Hi Marla, how you doing?
Hello, hi Debbie.
Hey, we've been wanting to do this video for quite a while. It has to do with her beautiful deck, the Twin Flame Oracle by iN2ITion. And this deck is incredibly rich, and a lot of people don't really know the depth to which they can go with this deck. And so we thought it would be a really good idea to give you an idea of like how we use it. I want to give just a brief introduction to how this deck came to be for any of you that have not dealt with this deck or had this deck. Or Marla actually was doing card readings for me and my sacred partnership when I was really struggling, and she had these index cards and they were so amazing. And we had just come out with, I think, what, the iN2ITion Oracle. Have we even done the Zodiac 108?
I think the Zodiac 108 was in process,
Right, and I went to
at
Kimberly.
least before the Twin Flame Oracle.
Yeah, and I went to Kimberly and I was like, oh my God, these cards are great. So we got together with Marla. Marla wrote the cards, and Kimberly did all the illustrations. But tell them what happened right before we went to production on this.
Yeah, so I had written these cards and I was using them, but like you said, I think they were on like blank cardstock, and I had just written these messages, and those were the ones that I was going to use because I had been working with them for a while. And right before I was going to turn the information over to Kimberly to start doing the concept and the artistic work on it, my higher self came in and said, no, no, cards are not good enough. We need to turn up the vibration on these cards. So I was actually away on a trip at that time, and I was in a hotel room, and I just channeled a whole new set like within a 24-hour period.
That's so shocking. And what's so funny about that is I don't think I knew that, Marla, until we started to record this video. You said, "Oh, by the way, did you know?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." That is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, some of them were just tweaked a little bit, and some of them were totally scrapped,
Wow.
and new information was brought through.
And I'll tell you why this is important, guys. This deck, like our other decks, they are divinely guided, and they're really designed for the times that we're in. Those of you who have followed us or have our cards, you will know from working with them, they're designed to help you contact your own inner knowing. And this is part of like the ascension process, is for us to get in touch with our inner knowing and higher guidance. And so the fact that information came in and said, oh, we've got an update to these cards because they need to level up because the collective is leveled up. That's just amazing. And that is how we are all working here at iN2ITion together to bring tools that, provide you with the absolute highest frequency and vibration for where we're at. So, yeah, we're going to
It
dig
was
in.
meant to, my higher self was guiding me to messages that are meant to help people expand their concepts around twin flames, what twin flames mean, how to tune into the spiritual energy that's there with your twin. And that's always there. There is no separation there. And I think that that's one of the major things that sets this deck apart from other decks that are out there, is it really brings in the spiritual element. It's like you can use your twin flame journey to elevate your consciousness, or you can get stuck in like everything that's happening in 3D and focus on like the negative things about,
Right.
like, oh, I can't show up for you, in the way that you say things. And you
Yeah.
want to help people shift their consciousness so that they're not feeling the separation, the pain, the aloneness. You want to like give them an outlet to go higher.
Right, because the journey, and I have full blown experience with the journey, is really about turning inward, anyways. It's really about what blocks do I have to love? What things do I need to adjust within myself to prepare myself for a sacred counterpart? That's what I loved loved about these cards. And when you brought these cards in to me, even at whatever level they were at the time, I was in destitute pain. I was going through it. And working with the cards and working with you and the way you were seeing the cards and the situation really helped me gain that higher perspective. And, you know, as a twin flame coach, if you will, you know, sometimes it's hard for me to get my own perspective. It's easier for me to see everyone else's higher perspectives. But for me, I mean, these cards really, really helped, and your readings really helped elevate. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video too, is because the way you read the cards is really, really special. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of these cards, and we're going to, you know, look at different ways to interpret them. Where would you like to start with this, Marla?
Well, I have singled out some cards I've taken some notes on.
Okay.
Like you said, Debbie, we're going to take some of the cards that I think are a little bit tricky for people to understand. And we're going to look at the message. When you have a message deck, the obvious thing to do is to just take the message at face value. But let's talk about how we can take the messages deeper so that we are not just using this deck with twin flames or even a love relationship, right? This deck can be used with any type of romantic relationship, of course, but also we hope to talk about how we can use this deck to get messages for ourselves and what we need to heal. What does our higher self want us to know?
Right.
What about other people in our life? We can use these cards for that as well. So I've singled out some, and I'm going to talk about different ways that they can be interpreted.
Okay.
But before I even go into that, I want to talk a little bit about the artwork on here.
Okay.
This is one of the things that sets this deck apart, and this is all Kimberly's contribution to this deck. She came up with the concept, which was these little postcards and pictures. And so in a lot of message decks, you either have no picture or you have a very simple stock picture. On this deck, some of the pictures are very detailed, so we can get information from the image. They all have a suit. There is 133 cards.
I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. I'm gonna bring a tabletop on here so that I can show some stuff.
Of course, we have the message. We have the actual image on the card that we can get information from. Each card has a suit. As I was saying, there's 133 cards. One of the things that's amazing about Intuit is that the decks are, well, the Oracle decks are over 100 cards, and they all, I think, average now about 133 cards because we've just put out the second edition of the Twin Flame Oracle.
Yep.
And we added an extra suit to make it 133 cards to be in line with the other Oracle decks. That's a lot of cards. That's a lot of messages. And the interesting thing, too, that when I talk to people who are using this deck is they'll be like, oh, I get that card all the time. Or like, I'll pull a card for someone that I know also has my deck, and they'll be like, I got that card 3 times last week. So, you know, when you have this many cards and you keep getting the same card, that there's truth in that card.
Absolutely.
Like there's definitely a message there.
Well, and I'm showing 4 different suits right now: timing and intention, growth, mirrors, and union cards. And so you can see, guys, they're color coordinated with the suit. So, you know, when you get really familiar with, oh, this is about mirrors, it's always the gray cards and stuff like that. So there's so much depth to this deck. Okay.
And the color on certain suits can add another dimension. And we did, you know, Kimberly and I discussed like, so the telepathy card, which is where I'm going to start today.
Right.
It has a dark purple background.
Yeah,
because
let me show one.
Telepathy, and it coordinates with our third eye chakra. So that's something that you can keep in mind. The communications cards are in a dark blue color background. So that coordinates with your throat chakra, your 5th chakra. So there's a lot of suits in here. They don't all coordinate to a chakra, but some of them do. And you might be a person that you intuitively align with colors. So you can assign your own meaning to the different colors. We also have numbers on the cards, which many of you pay attention to numbers, number signs, number sequences.
Right.
Those give the cards additional meaning. And then we can even go deeper and we've got these little stamps and postmarks. You can see the postage stamp. This one is actually harder to read than some of the other suits, but
Okay.
you can see the year is 1910, which if you're doing a reading, that might be something about that year, something about that sequence. It might mean October 19th. You could use the numbers 191. The numbers add up to 11. So you can even get information from the stamp, the first card that I want to talk about today, which is for telepathy. In the first edition, the card is I'm trying to connect to you and give you a message. Can you hear me?
Right.
And then we changed it a little bit in the second edition to I want to talk to you, but I'm not sure I'm ready to share everything and give you the answers that you deserve.
Wow.
So I'm gonna, like, most of what I say about this card is going to be directed to the first edition version because I feel like that one was a little bit more vague. And so maybe people sometimes had a harder time interpreting it. But I think that for what I'm going to talk about, you could still use it for the second edition version as well. The first thing, okay, is it's a telepathic message. So that's where we're going to bring our focus. It's something that is not being said to us directly.
And this applies across the board with this whole suit. Something that
Yes.
comes in telepathically that's not being spoken, but is being sent to you telepathically.
So the first thing I would say about this card is if you are trying to read this, this person is thinking about contacting you. They are possibly consciously sending you a telepathic message. And
Right.
you might be picking up on the fact that this person wants to talk to you. You might be feeling that. If you feel like you're receiving telepathic message from your twin, but you're not sure, and you get this card, then I would say that's a confirmation for you that
Right.
yes, they are sending you telepathic messages, or we could say that their higher self is sending you a message, perhaps like a spiritual message. I'm sure, people that are on the twin flame journey have experienced like just hearing a message from their person in their head, like out of the blue. I would say also, I would read this card possibly as this person is trying to organize a message to you in their head, but
Okay.
they haven't quite sorted it out because we're looking at this man. He's got a piece of paper, he's got the pen in his hand, but he's not writing. He's in the thought process.
And this is where Kimberly's depiction of certain things really adds a little level too.
Absolutely. So they're not ready to send the message, but perhaps they're organizing a message, preparing, thinking about what they would say to you. Another thing I would say is maybe you're not listening to what someone is trying to tell you. So maybe your twin, again, we could use different people. We don't have to use the twin all the time. You were to get this card, half the message is, can you hear me?
Right.
So it's like maybe you need to stop and think about, am I listening to what the person is saying? Have I misunderstood the message? Is something not clear?
Well, yes, that works. But also, this could be any person. If you're dealing with a work situation, this could be a work person. It represents a person. There are some cards that are very specifically love related, but some are just communication related, this being telepathic communication.
Also, I feel this card can represent that there's an unspoken message because you have the card there, but let's look at the man's face. Okay, the man is in this picture to me is like he's staring at the person across from him and he's trying to give them a message without words. So we
Right.
probably all experienced that where someone is trying to communicate with us and they can't use words. So they're like looking at us with their eyes.
And they're silent, and
Oh,
you're like, why won't you speak?
yeah.
In real life,
I
I
would
mean.
say, like, maybe this card is trying to get you to look back at previous communications that you've had with this person
Right.
and see, like, maybe you need to read between the lines or think about, was there something this person wasn't saying? Was there something that I could read in their eyes that I wasn't connecting to? And yeah, especially I think with the new edition, because the person in this card is saying, I'm not sure I'm ready to give you the answers. So they're letting us know that they're not telling us everything. But is there something in their words, their action, or not their words, their actions or their eyes that was giving us a clue?
Right, because it's an energetic thing. It's picking up things that are not always apparent, which is that telepathic flavor.
So by the very nature of being telepathic, it's not something that is totally grounded
Right.
in the material plane right now. So like I said, if you asked about your higher self, okay, then obviously your higher self is saying, I'm trying to talk to you. Are you listening to me?
Right. Oh, or there's stuff that needs to be said. There's information that needs to come through, but you're not quite ready to hear it, but be on the lookout for it.
Absolutely. And I also think this can be someone that is working on a project that has a message. So it might be a book, it might be social media, it might be a video, and they have something that they want to express their opinion about. And sometimes the other cards will give you a hint about this, but maybe they're not quite ready. But we can break down the words a little bit. I'm trying to give you a message, or I want to give you a message, and I'm in the process of creating or beginning to communicate this message. Like if we were asking about mission, purpose, work, it might be I'm developing a new creative project.
Oh, right. It could be what the other person is doing, even.
Yeah. And it could
Yeah.
be something, telepathy can also be like creative energy that's flowing through us.
Wow, Marla. See, this is so helpful for me, even because I mean, like, I feel like I can read pretty deeply into some of these cards, but again, this is the kind of stuff where this is gold because I might not have even thought
Hope
of
so. I
that.
hope people
Yeah.
get something out of this.
Well, and I want to say one of the reasons why this is so important is there's a lot of activations happening right now in not just, twin flame community, but also just in deepening relationships, intimacy. It's one of the things I'm getting ready to talk about. Intimacy, all of that plays right into relationships at all levels. So this deck is perfect for that. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about with this telepathic message, the card 4?
No, I think that's enough about those two cards.
Okay.
For 8, telepathy now.
Yep.
You show up in my dreams. It helps me process buried memories. How this card came about, or what is trying to be communicated here, is that we can't always face the truths in our lives. Sometimes things are subconscious and we're not quite ready to get the full conscious information. And so it comes through in our dreams. Okay, so the person that you're asking about, they might have things that they're repressing about you. And so it's coming through in their dreams because there's something about it that they're not able to face or to handle quite yet in their reality. So an example would be someone is having a dream about a past life that you shared together, or someone is having a dream that's maybe like a premonition about how they're going to meet you in the future. Let's go back to the past life. So that person could be resisting the fact that they know they have this deep connection to you and that you're connected in a past life. And so that message has to come through when they're sleeping. But you can also break this message down. Take it has two. So really in any of the messages, when there's two sentences, you can always break down the sentences and just take one aspect of that. So you show up in my dreams. There could just be a message there, or it could be, I'm processing buried memories.
Right.
Sometimes we don't always have to go together, but there's a memory here that's trying to surface, and maybe the person doesn't recognize it as a memory, or they're not trusting it. And that would be the same for you. If you get this card about yourself, okay, then the message from spirit is we're trying to help you process things that you're not consciously aware of. Pay attention to your dreams. I would also say pay attention to your visions. Pay attention to synchronicities that are coming your way because your subconscious is trying to talk to you. It is an 8 card, and 8 correlates to karma, but it's also infinity. So this card could represent something that's outside of time. So when we're talking about memories, of course, it could be something from this lifetime that you've already experienced, but it can also be those deep memories that are, for most people, deeply embedded subconsciously that, something about it is trying to work its way up to the surface.
Well, and I'd like to interject here that the whole ascension process is about, I want to say, retrieving pieces of yourself and integrating them in throughout, everything's going on at one time is pretty much my understanding. And so we have all of these things that are happening to us, or we all in whether that's the counterpart or whether that's you or whether it's someone you're dealing with at work, we're all going through the same process of reintegrating aspects of ourselves. And that happens in the dimensional spaces called dreams or the lucid dreaming. So this card, if you look at it that way, really it takes it out of just the twin flame sacred counterpart, and you can pull that into any reading as you're working on something that's an extremely important part of your ascension because you're trying to retrieve this piece, and it's a big piece.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, the obvious message is, yeah, this person's dreaming about you, and so you might need to look at the cards around it. That can give you more information about what is trying to surface through their dreams or memories. For example, it could be something about their emotions and they're repressing their emotional connection to you. All right, I think that's it about
Okay.
that card. So the next one is nine telepathy.
All right.
Sometimes I feel like you're speaking to me in my head. At times it triggers me because I wonder how much you can see into me. So the first thing I would say about this card is this person is trying to tell you that they hear your voice in their,
Right.
they're saying they're getting telepathic messages from you, and perhaps it's triggering them a little bit. Again, you could take the two sentences, you can break them down, break them apart, and look at each one. It could be that they're hearing some message, as we talked about in the other card, like when you just all of a sudden you hear that person in your head and they have something to say to you. It could also be that they're replaying conversations that you've had in the past. So they're thinking about things that you've talked about. Maybe in some way it's triggering them, what's been said in the past, or again, if you pull other cards with it, you might get more information. Like
Right.
I feel bad about something that I've said. And something else with this card is the idea that they feel like you know so much about them. It's like you're reading their mind, rather.
And that can be a scary thing for someone if they're trying to keep things private. So that might indicate that they've got a little bit of fear going on, that you know too much, or they're in self judgment, right? And they're going to project
Right.
it onto you.
Like they're being guarded. If you're being guarded, you don't want people around you necessarily that you feel like they're so in tune with you that they know stuff about you before you even say it.
Well, and you might be hiding from yourself some things that you don't want to see. I mean, a lot of us have been dealing with that just in general. As these aspects come up to be integrated, we're like, yeah, I'm not really ready to see that right now. So if you're going to see it, don't be around me because I don't want you pointing it out. Right?
Right.
See ya. So it can explain someone withdrawing, actually.
Yeah. And so like one of the basic things here might be like the person thinking, how do you know so much about me? When maybe you haven't had that depth of conversation yet, but
Right.
they have this impression that, and even like we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah, this is, just to bring this up, and it is a good point to do it. Every reading is going to be so different depending upon the circumstances, depending upon how much contact you've had with the person, depending upon how well you know them in 3D or don't know them in 3D. Every situation is going to be different. So when we're reading these cards, that's going to be part of the level that you read the card as well. Like how in tune are you with your inner knowing? How in tune are you with what you're seeing and perceiving in real life? And yeah, it's very deep. You
And
got any more?
like the
Yeah,
question is all important as well that you're asking
true.
to get the information on. We have this image of this man with these headphones on, right?
Right,
So this person could be saying that they're actually physically listening to something. So it could be music that
right,
reminds the person of you. It
right.
could be recordings of your voice, especially if you're someone that maybe you have a YouTube channel, or you're someone that's out there. Maybe you are a performer or singer and you've got something out there. Your person could be listening to you on
Mm-hmm.
their headphones. We have water on the background. So this man's sitting like, it looks like the ocean, could
Right.
be a big lake. So that could give you information about the location of where the person is. It could be like a reminder of some place you went together, some place they like to go, connected to a past life location.
And it also could be water is emotions. So maybe they're dealing with emotions right now.
True, yeah, absolutely. Or even a place where you had your last conversation. In fact, that's what I have on my notes, Debbie. Is water representing the emotional state of mind when they hear your
Great
voice.
great
Yes.
telepathic communication between us.
This person feels or senses how close you are, and it makes them afraid. They might be putting up a wall. We kind of talked about this. Depending on your question, what you're tuning into, this could be someone that has crossed over to the other side that has a message for you. So someone in spirit,
Oh, right.
perhaps a loved one, a spirit guide, your higher self.
This could be you. Like in a
Yeah, I'm
reading,
thinking
you
like
could
if
be
you are
like,
asking a question about yourself and you get this, it might be that someone in spirit is trying to get your attention.
yep,
Again, if you've been feeling like someone's communicated with you, let's say you've been finding feathers or you've been seeing cardinals, you feel your loved one's energy around you that's in spirit, and you pull this card and you get this message,
yep.
then I feel like it's a confirmation that person is trying to connect with you.
That's a really good point too, is when we're reading cards, a lot of times this is all confirmation of stuff that's already inside of us, you know? Like, oh my God, there's this card. I was just thinking that. There you go. The universe has just showed up to say, yes, trust your inner knowing.
Right. Like I've been more and more as we ascend here, I'm understanding that every time I read cards, it's just a reflection of what I already know is going to happen or what
Yeah.
already is.
That's the biggest thing that's happening during this whole ascension process is that we're finding out just how connected we really are. This is one of the reasons why we do this.
If it is too, if you asked about your higher self, then you might be in resistance to something because the second sentence is at times it triggers me. So you might have to look within and see, like, am I resisting or repressing something here?
Well, and look at the headphones. I'm kind of resisting. I'm not listening. Na 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 na. Got my headphones on.
Well, the man's face, he's given us the side eye. And so I think there's a couple of different ways we could interpret
Right.
his face, like it could be, I'm not sure I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it could be a little bit of like a come hither look too.
Yeah, it
Like,
could be. Like I don't mind being triggered.
it could be about getting information that really resonates with you, especially like if you're listening to something, maybe you're listening to a lecture, a podcast, a video, and it's like the perfect information. So again, it would be a confirmation that there's truth in the information that you just heard or that you're listening to, or maybe, hey, go back and listen to that again
Right.
because there's a message there. So that's what I have to say about that one.
All right.
So 10 telepathic message is, it amazes me when we say the same things at the same time or finish each other's sentences. So I think it's pretty common on the twin flame journey that when you're communicating with your twin, you can finish each other's thoughts or you start saying something at exactly the same time. But
Right.
if you're going to go deeper with this card, what it means for me is that there's an alignment happening
Right.
between two people where our minds are becoming synchronized. We are deepening this telepathic connection because we're on the same wavelength. Like if it's a romantic partnership and you're in separation, okay, let's say you're a twin in separation. This is giving you confirmation that your minds are becoming aligned, even if you're not necessarily having the opportunity to communicate with that person
Right.
and really know that. There could be telepathic connections or conversations where you're getting inner guidance. If you aren't in communication per se, but you have a third party intermediary, or one of you is a public figure, again, for instance, and you're putting out information on your social media, then that can be showing you that the other person is becoming aligned. And this card would be giving you confirmation of that. It's expansion of the mind. So one of the things on the twin flame journey is the feminine is the heart energy, the masculine is the mental energy. And it's through our growth and development, releasing all the programming and everything around that, that brings us together. So I feel like this card can be an indication that you've both been doing work on your mental energy, clearing out old mental energy so that you can come into this alignment where your thoughts are not so polarized anymore.
That makes perfect sense. And that's great because I never would have thought of that for this card. That is amazing.
Let's say you got this card with this one. You show up in my dreams.
All
Okay,
right.
then one of you is having dreams about the other one that is showing you that you are aligning. So
Gotcha.
for twins, it might say, like, we might call that energetically uniting. I would also say that this card can confirm that you're thinking about each other at the same time. For example, we talked about that kind of saying the same thing, but we all experience with more than just our twin. We think about someone and suddenly they text us
Right.
or they call us. So that's like that little telepathic, and it's almost like what happened first? Did that person pick up the phone first? Or did I think about them in my head first?
And did they pick up the phone because they remembered me and called me because I was thinking about them? So it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? But you know what jumps out at me is you show up, right? So the words you show up right there is in itself a message. Boom, I'm thinking of you. Boom, you show up.
Now we're going to go on to the communication cards. We'll go with number 2 first. And
Okay.
again, guys, we're not going to go through 133 cards doing
Right.
this. We just picked out some that I feel might be useful for people. So just in general, as I said earlier, we have this royal blue suit, which correlates with the throat chakra, which is communication. If we look at the stamps here, this the actual imprint stamp
Yep.
says New York and 1944, 1944.
Okay.
And on the stamp is the Golden Gate Bridge with a plane over it. So we could say could be about New York, could be about San Francisco, could be about traveling somewhere, could have something to do with the numbers. So we can look at that for information. The message on the second communication card is when our conversations are lighthearted and playful, it eases the tension that is sometimes there when we talk. So the first thing you want to consider, I think, if you pull this card is how are you communicating right now? Are you angry? Are you in blame? If you're asking about your twin, I think it's important to consider how you're communicating, because I think what a lot of people don't realize on this journey is the energetic dynamic between twin flames is the priority dynamic. It's
Right.
not about what you say, it's the energy behind your words. So I always tell my clients, for example, if you are upset with your person and you just go in and you just, I don't know, like, I'm so mad at you.
Right.
What they're going to feel, they're not going to really pay attention to your words, but they're just
Right.
going to feel like this big whoosh of like negative energy coming at them. It's important to think about how you're communicating, because this card is saying, okay, there's been tension in our conversations, and I would prefer that the communication was more lighthearted. So think about, like, even if it's like whoever you're asking about, even if it's besides your twin, if they're very empathic, they're going to feel and respond to energy more than words. So your style of communication may not be benefiting you right now. So that's what you want to look at
Right.
with the other person, and vice versa. Maybe the other person, maybe you just had an argument and the person that you're asking about was very angry at you. Okay. And so they could be saying, with this card a little bit of like, I'm sorry that our conversation was so tense and heavy.
I prefer it to be this way.
Or, yeah, let's try and make it more lighthearted next time we connect with each other.
And it's a good example of the individualization of these readings is that you read these cards from the perspective of what you've experienced and what you know has happened in some cases. So it can give you added insight based on your situation.
If your person is withdrawing from communication with you, it could be because the underlying energy was too heavy and too tension filled, and it can push them away. A lot of times with twins, again, the energy is the priority. So they may not be able to talk with you because the energy isn't right. Maybe
Right.
some of you have experienced, I know I've experienced that. It's like if there's like too much chaos or it's too cloudy, you'll just feel like, no, I don't want to talk to you. It's like, and this doesn't have to be with your twin. This can be with other people as well.
Sure.
Where sometimes you're just like,
Happens to
I don't
me.
really
Yep.
feel like calling. I don't feel like talking to you right now, and you may not even know why.
Right.
That's the thing.
Well,
It's energy that is underneath.
a lot of times it's like you don't want to show another side besides the light and playful side. So you'd rather just not communicate than share an energy that you're not proud of being in, maybe.
That's a good point, Debbie, that I hadn't thought of. But yeah, so
Happens to
your
me.
person may be saying it's not the right time for me to communicate because I
Show
can't
up.
be lighthearted with you right now.
Right, exactly. I'm not going to show up in a way that I feel comfortable showing up in. It doesn't have to do with you necessarily.
Or maybe they just they don't want to, bring the relationship down. So they're just, holding
Right,
on with you right now.
right.
This card, one of the things that let's use an example. If it came out with this card,
Mm-hmm.
words have hurt me in the past,
Okay.
then that would tell you like this person is really sensitive to how they are being spoken to. Maybe not just by you, but that might be their way of communicating through the cards. Talking is difficult for me.
Right.
And when things are a little bit lighter, then I'm more comfortable in being able to communicate with you. But when things get heavy, I may feel threatened or defensive.
Right. And so the big point here is that, we're looking sometimes right now at just individual cards, but when you start pairing these with other cards, it just way opens up everything. Because you could be dealing with two of these twin flame cards, or you could be, looking at a Zodiac 108 card which has tons of words on it, and then you add that together and it adds so much even more meaning. It's like that's what these cards do is they open up depending on situations and depending on what other cards are available to you in your reading. So
I pretty much only use the three Intuit oracles.
that's pretty much me too, Marla.
Occasionally, I do turn to some other cards. When you're guided, maybe there's other
Sure.
cards that have specific messages, but pretty much those three decks give me everything I need.
Yeah. And sometimes I have to limit it, like for my readings. I have to limit it because I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so much information here. It'll take me 2 hours to figure it all out.
This card could also be telling you that your person wants to be a little bit flirtatious with you, or they would like you to be a little bit more flirtatious with them.
Right?
It can also be a message not to worry,
Yeah.
especially if you're asking a question that maybe has a little bit of worry or fear attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Then this card is like, oh no, don't worry. If you asked a question about your higher self, then I would say definitely that's a sign that you need to be lighter, not worried, and just release whatever is weighing you down. Bring your playfulness to whatever the situation is. Now, this card does have two women on it. Okay, this deck, another thing I love about our deck is it's inclusive of a lot of different people. Let's say you're asking about your friend. It's not maybe a romantic relationship, but you're asking about a friend or even another significant woman in your life. Then this card could be showing up to mean that there is a difficult or tension-filled talk coming up in the future
With this
another
person.
woman, or that you're going to get together with another woman and you're going to go out and have fun and release some tensions, maybe a girls' night out or something like that.
Right. Perfect.
Next one is number 6, communication. Please contact me. I may not respond, but knowing that you care opens my heart. So we have the obvious message that I just read, right? Like this person wants you to contact them. But I think on this card in particular, we have to look at the image, because how Kimberly has portrayed this is we have a man that's very physical and a woman behind him in like her etheric body.
Right.
She's not solid, so she's not really there. So even though this is a communication card, you may want to consider reaching out telepathically
That's what I
first,
was going to say. Yeah.
because it's like that, it's a spiritual connection here. Also, obviously, there's a reminder here that the connection between you is more than just physical.
Right.
And it's okay if the person doesn't respond to you. Again, one of the deeper reasons why this card was brought through was because sometimes we're guided to reach out to our person or to someone else just because they need to hear from us. they
Right.
they need a little bump. They need to know that you're there, and they may not be in a space to respond to you, but that doesn't mean that they don't appreciate the message. Let's say, for example, someone's really depressed, or someone just had something tragic happen to them, a loss of a loved one, and they might want to hear a message from you,
Mm-hmm.
but they may not have the energy to respond to you.
And
So
they're telling you that. They're telling you, hey, it doesn't matter if I respond, it still means something to me.
yeah, exactly. That's like, I still feel that it touches me that you care enough about me to send me a message. So obviously, if this is your twin and you're not communicating very well and there's been silence, and what happens a lot of times is one reaches out to the other and then they feel rejected if the person doesn't respond, and
Right.
then they can feel sad and depressed, but that may not be what the other person is thinking. The other person may not, they maybe just didn't have the energy, or they don't know what to say. There's a million reasons why they're not responding that may not be about
And I
you.
was going to say, this is a reminder. This kind of card is a reminder that sometimes we take things way too personally. You know what I mean? You could actually say, hey, stop taking this personally that I'm not responding to you. It's not you, it's me. And we always think it's about us, but it's not always about us. So, and we're
Right.
projecting that onto them. So,
Another thing about this energy too is when, especially twins that are in communication, the energy can become very stagnant if there's no communication, and it
right.
just kind of just goes, "Ooh," and it's not
Absolutely.
doing anything.
Yep.
And that energy has to be broken up. And oftentimes, the way higher self guides us to break it up is
Yep.
to reach out to the other person.
Yeah. Even
It's
if it's
just that
energetically.
thing. Or just like a quick text. Doesn't have to be a lot, but that's enough to like get the energy to start moving again. Because even though your person doesn't respond, energetically there's a response. So I'm
Okay.
always coaching people, don't ever get in that mindset of nope, I'm never going to reach out to them,
Right.
because sometimes it's not about them. It's about how can we get this energy into forward motion again.
Yes.
It doesn't even require a response. Okay, energetically opening the other person's heart. We kind of touched on that, but I think that's another important thing to remember. Or this card could be saying that your connection to each other is helping this person open their heart, even if they're not ready to communicate that with you at this time. It can also mean that communication is grounding, because we have one person material, one person spiritual, and I always look at the flowers that she's trying to hand him. Me, it's like a merging or a grounding of the spiritual and the physical. And so this could be a sign that, communication is going to be improving in the 3D, or that you could hear from this person soon, even if they don't respond the moment that you reach out to them. I do want to say too here that, if you're asking questions, you're reading about a person that has set obvious boundaries with you. Like they've made it clear that they're not ready to talk to you. Maybe
Right.
they have you blocked and a lot of different ways.
Right.
So, use your judgment as far as reaching out if you get this card. But, I'm not the type of person in the twin flame community that's going to suggest bulldozing over people's boundaries. And
Right.
only you can judge that in your own situation. So you've got to be honest with yourself. Like, you don't want to be all, nope, I'm never going to communicate. And you don't want to be, I'm going to push this person every single day.
Well, and there's this other aspect is this card could come up if you want to contact the person and you don't have the ability to keep your boundaries in check, and you could actually, this could be a projected thing. If you know that this person has asked you not to contact them, you can still contact them telepathically. You don't have to go knocking down their door. But
Right.
I think that a lot of people are actually in this path are hopefully moving beyond that at this point. I think,
I think so. I mean,
yeah,
I think most of
yeah,
most of the people that I'm working with, they know these things.
right, exactly.
But
Was there any more with this card?
there's could be new people watching us as well. And I've seen other people in the twin flame community advocating that people cross and push their twins' boundaries.
Oh, yeah,
So that's why I just want to have that disclaimer in there.
good.
So let's say you got this card with the card, I feel your energy around me, and I wonder if you're thinking about me too. Then you would know that this is about the telepathic or 5D connection.
Okay,
But if it came out with, or if it came out with the card, I'll contact you when I'm able, but right now my life is too complicated to bring you into it, then
mm-hmm.
again, maybe this person wouldn't mind hearing from you, but they're telling you like, the reason I'm not responding is because I just have too much going on in my life.
Right.
When things settle down, then I'm definitely going to contact you. So that is 6, telepathy. And we're going to talk about 11. When we're talking, things just come out of my mouth, and I'm not even sure why I said them. So this is kind of like that old, oh my God, why did I say that?
Beat yourself up for saying something. Yeah. Or they might be, right?
Yes. I mean, depending on your question.
Yeah.
Saying something that you didn't mean to.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that you said something that was maybe inappropriate, something that was more negative or offensive, and now you're regretting it. Or it could be that the person has said too much and they feel like they've given too much of themselves away. They've let their guard down a little bit too much.
Run.
Now they're a little bit like maybe triggered or
Yeah.
feeling anxiety
Yeah.
about that. It could also be that energy, like we just said, of like, where did that come from? Like, have you ever been in a conversation with someone? And for a lot of us spiritual people, like, we might just start channeling some
Oh,
kind
right.
of, and it's like, oh, where did that come from?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't even
Definitely.
realize that I knew that or I had that information. So it can be something is being channeled. So if you just had a situation with someone and they were really mean, they were hurtful, and you get this card, then you can get the idea that, maybe they didn't mean what they said. Maybe it came out in the heat of the moment.
Or they're
And
dealing with
I'm
something.
sorry.
They might be dealing with something that you triggered in them, and it all came out on you, but it wasn't about you.
So, like inner child being wounded, be something connected to this as well. And they're like acting out from their inner child. In that kind of situation, when we start saying something and we take it further than we wanted to, we share too much of ourselves,
Right.
then we can get that sudden, like, okay, I want to draw back. And so maybe then I get defensive. If you're talking about a twin flame in particular, very often when you're in communication, your higher self is going to come through, and you're going to
Right.
say things at different times, or they're going to say things, and you really don't know, like, where did this come from? And you may not even realize it in the heat of the communication. It might be something that happens later, because again, it's a lot about the energy, not so much what you're saying. So sometimes, like, the energy is really high and you're having a conversation with your twin, you may not even like be fully grounded in your body and things are coming out. Again, it's going to depend on the situation, what the conversation was, but maybe you could be feeling angry at your person or vice versa. But when really, when you look at it, you're like, well, maybe that person was channeling our higher self. Maybe that person was trying to give me a subtle message.
I'd like to throw something in here. Something that's been coming to me lately is that we're all a lot of this is scripted. And so the things that come out of our mouths are lines that we are supposed to say, and we don't even realize that we are contracted to say them. And that has been a big theme for me. So this is a great card for me to think of that. I've had 4 or 5 situations where I'm like, why? And my inner being said, you delivered your lines perfectly for whatever reason. So
Yeah, and I know about some of those things you're talking about. So
yeah,
I think it's appropriate to add in regards to this card is like you might suddenly find yourself being very courageous and saying
exactly.
something where, oh my God, where did I get the courage to say this? Or the person that you're asking the question about, you
So it
know,
could be a strength card.
like I was speaking up and I don't know how, where it came from, how I got the power to say it.
Right.
It's going to depend on what the conversation is. I do have on here when we're growing in our voice, we have these moments where our higher self comes through us, like a channel to give advice to someone or vice versa. It can also represent someone is programmed and they don't even realize they're repeating programs. So that's
Oh,
a great
right.
use
Right.
that.
Well, they're
Like the
saying their
script is a
script.
program.
Yes, it is. Good point.
We're
We
connected.
are telepathically. Snap. We've been friends for a long time, you guys.
We have. Okay, so the next cards we're going to talk about are a couple mirror cards. So we mentioned that silver color briefly before.
Yep.
So the silver color to me represents something that is being reflected or something that's a little bit elusive. It's an interesting stamp on here, and it's from, I'm not sure I'm going to say this right. So if you're from Ireland or the British Isles, don't kill me. Rathmines, which is a suburb of Dublin, Ireland, and the stamp in the background looks like it is a picture of Ireland. So that could be some possible information. It also says December 5th or 6th, I can't quite read it, and 22. 22 is actually a mirror number. So I don't
That's
know if
my
Kimberly
number.
did that on purpose.
That's my
She might have
number.
because she thinks of all these little details when she's creating.
I'm sure it's there subconsciously.
So the first one in this suit is I can't validate our love in 3D until I understand our spiritual love in 5D. And I'm actually going to talk about it in conjunction with the second card too, which is as you surrender your 3D expectations, I surrender to our 5D connection. So I feel like these cards are, you know, they're similar energy because we're speaking about the 3D and the 5D, really the material plane and the spiritual plane. So I feel like the messages here can be a little bit cryptic for people, especially if they don't know a lot about twin flames or they haven't followed me. But we're talking about how the divine masculine and the divine feminine work together here. So I can't validate our love in 3D until I understand our spiritual love in 5D. A lot of times on the twin flame journey, we want to be with the person right now, and we don't understand all the blocks that could be coming up. So we're on one end saying, I need the 3D now, I need the 3D now, I need the 3D now. And when we're doing that, we're pulling on our twins' energy. Specifically, like if you're the divine feminine and you're asking about the divine masculine, the feminine is the higher spiritual energy, the masculine is the more grounded material world energy. And you've got to learn both roles. So the masculine grounds the energy so the feminine can explore the spiritual realm. And then you'll get to a point where the feminine has integrated to where they become the grounding energy and the other twin goes off to explore the spiritual reality.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have here is you might be asking about why are we not together? And your twin is saying, because I'm still trying to explore the 5D. I'm still trying to explore the spiritual connection. Some of the cards we talked about earlier, for example, you show up in my dreams, and we were saying that sometimes the energy is repressed and the person can't face that. It could be because they're like holding the grounding energy. And so it's difficult for them to go flying off in the spiritual. They need you to come in and ground them so then they can explore it. So I just want to go in, make that clear for people who may not understand what this card is trying to say. You or your person is trying to explore the spiritual connection. They're trying to elevate their consciousness.
I'd like to also interject here. It doesn't necessarily have to be about you. It could be about themselves. They're still going higher and higher in their ascension journey, which is the spiritual side of their journey. And if they haven't done that work, they've got to do the work just like you did. So it's not even always that they're trying to explore the connection with you. They might be very well trying to explore just the whole connection they have to them, to their higher selves. And until they do that, they can't really show up for you in the partnership that you're looking for, because they have to meet you where you're at.
Absolutely. Well said, Deb. And
Thank you.
yeah, if they're not ready, because if they haven't explored that spiritual side, they may not fully understand or be aware of all the multidimensional levels you're connected. And as you said, they're not going to be able to show up as the supportive twin that you need and want them to be.
Well, and from what I understand, it's very possible that they will never have the same spiritual insight as you have in this lifetime, but they have to be connected to their own higher self. They have to be in their own power. And see, ascension is about empowerment, and empowerment comes with your being able to take care of your own needs, and we learn that through the spiritual journey. So even if they don't come up and understand all the connections that you have in 5D 3D, they still have to come into their own power. If they haven't done that yet, that's what I would think these cards are about.
Yeah, good point. And so like with number 2, we have, as you surrender your 3D expectations, I surrender to our 5D connection. So that's kind of like what we've been saying. If like the more we are trying to pull on their energy,
Yep.
the less they're able to explore that. So it's our lesson, or it's the feminine's lesson, to let go of the 3D expectations. And when you do that, that allows the other person the space to do this exploration, to connect to their higher self and to follow their own spiritual path so that they can become more aligned.
And the motivation to do that is they're not going to show up until they do that work. So there you go. Surrender that 3D expectations.
That card, if you're asking something about your twin journey, you might need to look at yourself. What am I still holding on to in 3D? What do I still
Need.
think that I need from my twin? If you're asking a question about your higher self, for example, then these cards would be directing you back to spirit and saying that you're probably too focused on the material world right now.
Yep.
To get or understand the message that your higher self is trying to give you. So let go of the material world and trust, especially with number 2. Let go of the 3D and trust. Number 3, communication, is I've watched you change and grow so much. I'm trying to release attachment to my identity. So like I said with the other cards, you can break these sentences down and take one sentence at a time, or maybe one sentence is going to be more pertinent to your situation than the other one. Mm-hmm. So if we take the first sentence, right, either the person you asked about, your higher self, or like you need to honor the work that you've done. It's like give yourself a pat on the back. You have grown and you've changed so much. Could also be like the other person is changing and growing. In a twin flame dynamic, probably it's saying that the other person is wanting to change now because you're inspiring them in some way, or the work that you've done is now being transferred to them. Doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have to do any work. They just take your information or they take your growth. But it's like they can integrate some of that so that they get the inspiration to like go on their next step, go to their next level. This card could be about anybody feeling inspired by your work. So if you're asking about yourself, if you're asking about mission, then I would say the card is saying, you know, you are inspiring people. You're inspiring people to change and grow with the work that you're doing. The other thing here is releasing attachment to our identities. So if we're overly attached to ideas about ourselves, then that makes it harder to change. And we have to work through a letting go process of that. So in a message from your person, they could be telling you that they're working through who they think they are versus who they need to become in order to embody the next version of themselves. So an example might be someone who is very religious and they have very strong faith that is attached to religious teachings. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course. When we start to grow spiritually, we may need to let go of some of those more earthly or man-made concepts of religion and what God is. And that could be triggering for someone who fears letting go because they become attached to certain identity that has certain belief systems. So they're in the process of transforming, or you're inspiring them to look at their own life and think about ways that they can transform themselves. Number 8, you're projecting your own fears and limitations onto me. Go within to understand that you are seeing yourself, not me. So let's say you ask the question, hey, twin, are we ever going to be in union? And you get this card. Right? This is your fear. You're just, like we were saying earlier, the cards just reflect, you know, what you're thinking.
Right.
So this is saying like, if I was to get that, I would say, oh, my higher self is saying, you're going into fear.
Yeah, right.
You're asking that question from a place of fear. So it's like you're afraid of something and you think it's about your twin, and that's not what they're thinking. Let's use an example. Are we ever going to come into union and you feel you're coming from a place of fear and you fear they're not, but that may not be anything connected to what your twin is thinking. So you're getting directed back and you're saying, no, that's just what you think in your mind. That's not necessarily what the other person is thinking.
Here's just another example of the kind of cards that this is anybody. This can be read for anybody. If you're talking about a relationship question, this is the perfect deck. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is. If some come up that are romantically based, you can look deeper and say, how does this relate to the relationship I'm talking about? And if it doesn't, set that card aside and pull another one. That's what I would do.
Sometimes we can take some of those ones, like we do have a romantic suit, and those cards are more centered on the physical relationship.
Just take them out. Use the suits.
You can even translate that energy though. Like there's one that is, I long to sweep you off your feet and shower you with my love. Well, for me, that card is just about passion.
Yeah.
Like allowing yourself to get swept off your feet by passion, creative energy.
Creative energy. Yep.
So we can even take those kind of cards and contemplate looking at them in a new way. Yep. So how they might work with a non-romantic relationship.
But I was going to say, if you can look at the suits and you can say, what suits do I want to use for this particular reading? Like if you really don't want to wade through some of the more physical things because it might be like, ew, that doesn't apply to me and my sister, then you can pull those cards out if it makes you more comfortable. Right?
That's true. Absolutely.
I didn't ever think of that though. You could, like in any reading, you could say, geez, the Suit of Mirrors is about projection. This is about telecommunication or telepathic. And this is about communication. All of these subjects all really have to do with any kind of relationship. I'm going to pull those cards and throw them in my iN2IT Oracle deck. I might do that. That's a really cool thought.
So if you were to get this card from your higher self, then they're telling you that you have or you will in the future get triggered, or that your own mind is creating a limitation. And so you want to ask yourself what it is you're really afraid of. It is an 8 card. Now, we did purposely align certain messages with certain numbers, just like we tried to do with the colors and the suits.
Right.
So the eights to me are always about some kind of pattern. For
Yep.
me, when I say karma, karma is just a pattern. It's a repeating cycle that will keep going until we break it.
It's an
And we
infinity loop.
else. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not always sure if people know that much about projection. It's something that I think you and I talk about a lot, Debbie, but maybe some people aren't familiar with projection. So I wanted to just touch on that one.
Sure.
Okay, so the last card here that we're going to talk about today is from the romantic messages. Actually, it's number 3. And if we look at the card, we have hot pink, and this pink color is the color of the high heart chakra, and it connects us to unconditional love. We have this little stamp on here, has an American flag on it, but also Elizabeth,
Oh, I'm
New
having a hard time.
Jersey. So again, it could be something about New Jersey. It could be the name Elizabeth, the town Elizabeth, that has some kind of connection. The stamp is a pink rose, which is the energy of the divine feminine. If people can't see, like on the borders, just like the back, it is all based on roses. But in particular, that stamp is on there. So this card is, I feel the sexual energy between us, yet it's beyond physical attraction. It needs to be elevated to the expression of deep, unconditional love.
Get out of those lower chakras, people.
Exactly, exactly.
I just
So do
couldn't
you
resist.
remember? Well, that's what my notes say.
It's funny. Snap.
The number 3 is the third energy, which comes from the energy of union, the balance of the masculine and feminine, and it's the creative force. But when you're actually in the sexual energy, having a sexual experience, that energy is what is being brought up, and that is how we manifest things.
Mm-hmm.
So why twin flames have to go through this big process that people are always complaining it's so painful, it's so long.
Please help me.
It's
Yeah.
because we have to be pure. We have to be pure in our heart, in our intentions, because this is a creative force unlike anything that we've seen en masse on the planet before. And we have to be doing this from the right place. We have to be doing it from our heart, balanced with a logical mind that can process possibilities, so that we're not getting ourselves into trouble.
A lot of what I'm working with my clients is the aspect of the intimacy, and that intimacy is not just physical. In fact, I'm beginning to see that without the other kind of intimacy, which is the openness and honesty, you cannot have this hot stuff. So, just something to think about too. That kind of goes along with the
100%.
message of this card.
100%. And when I get to talking about the lower chakras, and transforming the energy, it's because you're developing true intimacy, which comes from your heart chakra and above,
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
the lower chakras.
No, no, no. As tempting as that may be, people.
So also, let me just say about the image here. Obviously, it's a powerful image.
Talk about passion.
Very posh. I forget, I remember doing a reading one time. It was like a public reading, and this card came up, but it was just so funny with the question that I asked, because I think it came out with, I don't know, the fireworks card or something.
Oh boy.
Anyways, they're in water, right? This is the ocean. So very strong emotional connection. And maybe even we could say there's a possibility of some turbulent emotions,
Yeah.
or very strong magnetic emotions would be coming up.
Overpowering.
Yeah.
Overpowering.
And the ocean could represent a place as well. So if we dive deeper into this card, right, the sexual energy with a twin flame can be very strong, almost animalistic in nature. And it can be so strong that it can take you off your spiritual course.
Yeah.
And you can get so caught up in the sexual energy if it's not elevated
Yeah.
into the spiritual connection. You can become so focused on sex that your relationship stagnates. And you could just be looping round and round, and you may not realize, probably the divine feminine in the connection is going to be going, why can't I get out of this loop? Why does my twin only want sex from me? Why won't he commit? It's because you're stuck in this loop of the lower chakras.
Right.
And you need to transform the sexual energy into unconditional love.
And the word that comes to mind that I've dealt with specifically is demagnetization. There has to be sometimes a demagnetization process that goes on in order to get to the deeper levels of intimacy. And at that point, something can rekindle.
You want to just explain that? That's a great term, Deb. Do you want to just
Yeah.
explain a little bit?
Well, there's a video on my channel, What on New Earth, that I did with Hamish Bartholomeus. And what we found is that there's been a lot of interference with twin flames. It's twin flame interference, if you guys want to go check it out. There were patterns sometimes put on people that emphasize the physical draw to each other, and they were put on them at a time where they're not at the level of intimacy. So those patterns can actually be on you, which brings you together like that, and it makes it very difficult to break. That happened to me personally. So when we discovered the pattern, we dissolved the pattern. We identified the pattern, and what I found out is just by the nature of my spiritual acumen, I had demagnetized myself because like this card says, elevate to a higher place. I was just doing that naturally. And so because the counterpart was still in the physical, I had to say no, no, no. And I demagnetized myself. And then I had to say, you need to demagnetize yourself. Stop chasing me down, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So the demagnetization process puts you back more at neutral. And I'll tell you what, it's not always, it's so exciting because we think of that chemical nature as being the key to twin flames or sacred counterparts. But the truth is, and this is what I'm teaching about now, is intimacy is the key. So intimacy enables you, and that's openness, honesty, and all that stuff. And then you can allow that magnetization. It's going to be natural because there is that spark anyways, right? Thank you for letting me have a chance to explain that.
Yeah, no, that was great.
It's a perfect card for it.
Sometimes, if there are people out there that are stuck in that loop, you may need to pull back your physical energy from your person for a bit to kind of like break that up.
And if you need help, I do know of someone who knows how to break those. Like if it's an artificial template that's been put on you, and sometimes it's put right on actual bona fide twin flames, it's interference. So if it's interference, you want to deal with the interference, dissolve it, figure out how to dissolve it or get it dissolved. He takes that stuff off. I had already done that for myself. I had already dissolved it, but he could see it. So interesting.
Yeah, I mean, sex between twin flames is sacred.
Yes.
But when you're in the lower vibrational energy, which in and of itself is interference,
yeah,
then you can't be sacred with your person. So it's like if you want to call it the dark forces or human nature in its worst example, has taken sex, which God gifted us, has this sacred connection to share that actually can, create. It's a creative force that actually creates children, right?
Creates a third energy, yes.
Yeah, but the dark energy on the planet has made it all about the lower chakras.
That's what's
interfered with through pornography and
interference patterns.
Programming about feminism, things like that. We won't get into all that.
Yeah, but it's good to know, especially because right now the twin flame relationship, original pairs, counterparts, whatever your terminology is for it, this is what's shifting right now. So if you find yourself reignited on the twin flame path, This is why. We've seen a lot of people surrender this path and say, oh no, I'm not on this path anymore, only to go, hi, I'm back.
Mhm. Another thing I want to say about the energy on this card is that when you meet your twin, you can have a Kundalini activation. Most people do. And then that really triggers sexual energy at the beginning of the dynamic. What that is the Kundalini is activating. It starts at the lower chakra, the root chakra, works its way up, and it's cleaning those chakras out. So when you first meet your twin, you're going to feel a lot of that sexual energy, but it's coming from the lower place as it clears out, and then it's going to move up into the upper chakras, which, like what you were describing, Debbie, that's a natural process that we go through. We can get sucked in to the physical attraction, and then as we purge all of that out, then we naturally come into the intimacy factor. And this passion, if there's no intimacy, which, like you said, is about being able to be who you really are,
Your
to
authentic
say
self.
what you need to say, to be honest with each other, to feel safe with each other, then that's gonna block up and cause stagnation with your twin. And that's how we're changing the old relationship templates. And so this energy won't serve your union anyways. So even if you're living together, for example, you may not be in union, because to me at least, union means you're in your higher aspects and you're not stuck in the illusions of the physical world, like this kind of lower vibrational sexual energy can. I mean, you can see it very clearly when
Mm-hmm.
you look at society. It's a large part of the illusions
Yeah.
that we all live under. Transmuting that to love is what we need. Okay, so those are the cards that I have to talk about for today.
Okay.
We're going to do a part 2 of this video, right? And we're
Yep.
going to give some examples of using these cards in conjunction with each other to get more information. If there are any cards that people watching want us to go deeper in, they
Yeah.
can leave a comment below.
Yeah, I agree with that. That would be a really good way for us to put out another video even after the part 2. We could go into a part 3 later on that would be solving people's specific, not solving, but interpreting certain cards in certain, that you have questions about.
Yeah,
Are you thinking
if
that?
there's anything out there that people are like, I really don't understand this card. When I pull this card, I'm not sure what it's trying to tell me.
Right.
We'll be happy to talk about that as
Yep.
long as we know what those cards are.
Yep, and if you give us an idea of what question you asked when you pulled the card, that would be helpful too. But we'd love to do that, wouldn't we, Marla?
Yeah, absolutely.
We could even do a live if we wanted to at some point. Just
And
going
answer.
through and answering questions on what does this card mean? What does that card mean? Or I'm asking this question and I got this card. What did that really mean? I mean, we could do something like that. So we'll kind of let the comments steer where we go from this. Specifically, especially because this is really, we're experiencing a pretty big awakening again. We've had some, I want to say, realm level shifts in the counterpart, a leveling up of the counterpart, a healing of a lot of things at the counterpart level. You may see Marla and I doing some more videos, and we'll be using her cards to demonstrate all of that too. So we'll keep that open, right, Marla?
Yeah, and if someone's new to me, like say someone watching owns my deck, but they've never really watched me, a good way to learn about the cards is to go back and watch some of my monthly readings. Even if you're not a twin flame, I think like watching me use the cards and
Yep.
how I interpret them could be useful to people.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do now is just before we sign off, and I'll probably begin our other video with it. I want to let anyone know that does not know, we have iN2IT has a Kickstarter coming out. The new Astro Persona deck. This is an astrology deck, which Marla is going to be hopefully doing some videos on.
Yeah, I'm excited for this deck.
Yeah.
Just so people know, because I've had people be confused.
Yeah.
The Astro Prasanna deck and the Intuit Oracle, they're not my decks. Those are Intuit decks created by Debbie and Kimberly.
Well, Kimberly Aria, she created them. I'm her marketing partner, and I'm the first one that got to use a lot of these decks. So, but yeah, this is the new deck. It's about the same, number of cards as our other decks, and it is all of the different elements to a chart are included in here. So it's a personality trait deck, but it's so much more than a personality. You can use the deck to see who shows up in a reading, who shows up for you, who's coming in. But it can be used as an astrological tool as well. So I'm going to put a link below just so that you can go see our Kickstarter video and look at our Kickstarter page. It's launching October 24th. So I did want
You
to
guys
mention
have to
that.
go check out this deck. This deck is amazing. I've been waiting for it for a while.
We
'Cause I
have. It's
know
been
you
in
use it
process.
all the time.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to come back with a part 2 where we're going to do a little bit of reading. We're doing some readings, right, Marla? Just some readings of some cards and
Yeah, we'll do some interpretations of multiple cards and
okay.
asking questions.
That's going to be fun. All right. We hope you'll join us for part 2. Again, if you have any questions or specific things you want to know about, make sure you put it in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with a friend if you know someone that uses this deck and could use some help. So, all right. Well, until
Thank
our
you.
part 2, we'll just say goodbye, right?
Bye.
Okay. Bye.